Welcome to the first stop on my cross-country tour to help bring awareness to children's health. Sit back as we visit the Montreal Children's Hospital and your Montreal Canadiens. Montreal is one of Canada's most vibrant cities with its European flair. The city hosted Expo in 1967, the Summer Olympics in 1976, and is host to the Montreal Grand Prix and many festivals including the International Jazz Festival and the world's largest comedy festival, Just for Laughs. Montreal is also home to an amazing educational healthcare system under McGill University and Université de Montréal. Montreal has had some incredible heroes on the ice such as Maurice the Rocket Richard and off the ice with neurosurgeon Dr. Wilder Penfield. The Montreal Children's Hospital was founded in 1904. It was the first children's hospital in the city. In 1909, the hospital needed to build a new facility on Cedar Avenue. In 1920, it became part of the McGill University Health Center. In 1956, a new hospital was built on Tupper Street to help manage a growing number of cases. And on May 24, 2015, at 5 a.m., 68 patients were transferred to the new Mega Hospital campus at the Glen site. The hospital was responsible for several firsts, including the first speech clinic in 1933, a new division of genetics in 1949, and the Department of Psychiatry in 1950. Right now I'm standing outside the Montreal Children's Hospital. I'm about to go in and speak with the foundation and get a tour of the cardiology department.
So my name's Kim Fraser, and I'm the Vice President of Communications, Marketing, and Community Relations. I wear a lot of hats at the foundation. Also run the Special Events Department, and really enjoy what we do to support the hospital.
And can you tell me about the foundation's role for the hospital?
So the foundation is there. We're there to support the hospital. We're really there to make vision a reality. And we're the bridge between donors who want to make a change and help the community, and doctors and researchers and nurses and all kinds of hospital staff who have really exciting and interesting projects that they want to get going to improve the lives of patients and their families.
That's awesome. So how important is it for people to give to the foundation, and what kind of impact has COVID had on your fundraising activities?
Well, we think it's very important for people to give to the foundation. They're not really giving to the foundation, they're giving to the hospital.
Right.
And donations really make the difference between a good hospital and an absolutely spectacular one. And so donations drive a lot of innovation. They can be a springboard to obtain government funding. So for example, in research, often before you can get funding from granting agencies, you have to show that there's some support for your research in the community. So foundations and donors will fill that role in. And we also fund a lot of innovation. So there is a program here at the Children's which helps prepare kids to go into surgery, and it allows their parents to go with them. So back in the old days, you used to watch your child go through the doors in a stranger's arms, and now parents can come into the operating room while the child is being put to sleep prior to surgery. So these are the kinds of things that donors have made happen.
And how has COVID affected that?
Well, I would say for our special events department, COVID has not been kind. People during the pandemic could not gather together. And we have a lot of really dedicated community fundraisers who work very hard to host their own fundraising events to help support the hospital. But I have to say, when COVID hit, when the pandemic hit and the shutdown was ordered, we started calling our donors just to see how they were doing, because it's awfully stressful.
Right.
And all we heard from people was, how can we help? And so donations still kept rolling in. Our donors have been very, very supportive of the hospital, even though at the beginning of the pandemic, people felt that children had been spared. I think people understood and realized that healthcare was very important, and it was more important than ever to keep supporting these kids and their families.
So when COVID hit, do you think the donation rate went down, went up, or did it stay the same?
It changed. So for us as a foundation, we're quite lucky because we're very diversified. There are some smaller foundations that are very event-based. And so once you can no longer hold those events, the money dries up. In our foundation, we have many, many different sources of fundraising revenue. So as it went down in events, it went up in other areas of our fundraising. So we did quite well. We raised about $24 million, a little over $24 million last year.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So what are some of the current projects being funded by the foundation?
Oh my gosh, I don't think there's one area of the hospital that isn't funded by donors in some way or another. There are millions and millions of dollars that come in. We're doing a major campaign, and I believe you'll be speaking with Dr. Dancea. He has a project that we're funding in cardiology. We have another project that we're funding called Smart Hospital. So they're working on wireless vital signs monitoring so that little babies in the NICU can go back into their parents' arms. Their skin is very fragile. And the vital signs monitoring, if they can do it remotely, it means you can go home. People don't have to stay in the hospital. Yeah. So we have that. We have another one. There's a researcher for kids with cancer. What they're working on is there's a new type of biomarker called exosomes. Well, I guess it's already existed, but they've discovered it. And they're going to be able to determine through these exosomes, they're kind of like dandruff that cells shed, and in particular tumors. So they're going to be able to find out whether a tumor is there, how it's behaving, whether it's come back through a simple blood test instead of having to do a painful biopsy. And we also have a project. We're going to build Quebec's first crisis center for adolescents suffering from mental health problems. That'll be opening next year. And what else? Oh, we have a plan. I don't know if you've seen the hospital, but it doesn't look very much like a children's hospital, does it? So we want to decorate the hospital with a healing art campaign, because art has very healing properties. And a lot of the kids who come here often. Mm-hmm. So we want to make the place exciting and interesting and
feel like home.
Yeah.
That's awesome. If someone would like to support the foundation, how would they do that? And can donations be made for specific departments?
So people, we get a lot of donations online at childrenfoundation.com. And people do sometimes fundraise and donate money to specific departments, but there are a lot of people who just want to help the hospital. And so they give to the Healthy Kids Fund, and they trust that the people who run the hospital know best how to use that money.
So we've come to the end of our interview. Thank you very much for joining me. It was awesome speaking with you. And I had a great time.
Thank you very much, Zander.
I am a pediatric cardiologist. I've been here for over 20 years. I'm currently the division head for pediatric cardiology here at the Montreal Children's Hospital. Let me just introduce you to our division. So just to give you a historical perspective, we've moved from the legacy side of the Montreal Children's Hospital in 2015.
Yes.
We're now part of the McGill University Health Center. We're a separate pediatric facility within the MUHC, and during the move, we've fortunate to be able to count on this great diagnostic platform, interventional platform. And this is the cardiology center. So here we walking in, and so we have a dedicated waiting area for our patients and their families. We see both pediatric patients, children, but we also see mothers and families of patients who we know now that some of them have actually congenital heart disease. So we actually see them, we diagnose them even before they're born. And so so we follow these patients as well. And then so they come here, they wait, and then they register themselves, and then we sort of see them. And so here, this is the diagnostic platform. So here is where we see patients, and I'm going to show you the exam rooms, and then we do a gamut of tests that you probably know. There are the ultrasounds, the ECGs, the Holters, all that stuff. And this is what we do. And then there's other parts of the hospital, obviously, that we interact with. There's the operating room, the cath lab, which is on the third floor, and then there's also like the intensive care units that are on the 6th floor, and then the wards, which are on the 8th and the 9th floor. So we sort of, although we are based here for our outpatient work, we definitely back and forth within the floors to do what we need to do to take care of children with heart disease. So if you want, we could sort of like, walk around. On this side, we have essentially all the exam rooms. This is a typical exam room, where we see patients. There's 5 of them. There's 3 on this side. There's 3 on the other side. Here we have the stress test lab. Did you ever have a stress test done?
No.
We have to run on the treadmill, and so we monitor your heartbeat. We make sure that you don't have any abnormal electrical activity. We test to see how fast you can run and how long you can run. That also inclines. It's a typical thing that we do in cardiology.
Cool.
And then here we have 2 other sort of rooms where we do ECGs. So here you can lie down and have your ECG done. We can place Holters. And there's 2 of these rooms. The other thing that we have, so the way we designed this cardiac center is that we have the front of the clinic and then the back of the clinic. So for patients who come in from their inpatients, they come in for tests, they come in through this door, so separate sort of access to the unit. So that kind of keeps the 2 sort of streams of patients separate. Here we have a staff room. There is more sort of like rooms where technologists analyze data, Holters and other sort of imaging, other ECG stuff. And here we have it's where we spend a lot of our time. It's we call it kind of the cockpit, but it's essentially various reading stations. So all the ultrasounds that we do, and they come in. We have a sort of server that they go basically in a cloud, and then we actually sort of like that. It's very secure, and we basically watch the images, and we sort of do all our reports, and we also interact with each other. We discuss. This is what a lot of the time we spend in that area. And here we have from 1 to 5. We have essentially we have 5 ultrasound echo rooms. So in cardiology, as you know, we depend a lot on imaging, on receiving images of the heart, because the kind of problems that we deal with are problems that relate to malformations of the heart, right? Right. So we depend very heavily on ultrasound, and it's a non-invasive, and it's a very accurate way to diagnose and follow up patients with congenital heart disease. So we have 5 rooms that are staffed by technologists, and we also sometimes do images. And
so what has been the biggest challenge for the department during COVID-19 pandemic?
So the biggest challenge essentially, we were facing this as the rest of the world was, and there was lots of unknown as to how this will impact, children, adults, society by and large. And then as we sort of starting to know the disease and the condition better, we sort of understood that that by and large children don't seem to be affected very significantly. That's not a big issue with them. But then other than what I just mentioned earlier, the rare sort of inflammation that can occur and that can affect the heart as well. I think that the biggest challenge was essentially because we're sort of in a shared healthcare system. In particular, here we're in a building that deals both with adults and children. We had to adapt, and we had to sort of shift around resources to deal with the burden that the adults were seeing with COVID. Right? I mean, it's something that affects heavily the adults who get respiratory disease. So it's for some time we had to sort of slow down our usual sort of busy clinical practice to be able to allow that resources are being dedicated there. Some of us in the department have gone and helped out. There was initially issues with PPE, so then we couldn't actually see. We couldn't use them because they had to be like saved for the patients who were really sick and healthcare workers who were dealing with those patients. So that was for the first couple of months, and then after that, then as we sort of like came back into our routine, we sort of like getting used to the new routine and with the precautions coming in, coming out, and etc. Dealing with staff that are sort of like get sick or that are in contact, and sort of how that would sort of affect the ability to provide the usual services, because then if you all of a sudden half of the department is in quarantine because there was one contact or suspicion contact, then so essentially most of it has been logistics, and trying to do what we usually do, and dealing with the sort of like backlog that usually occurs if you sort of slow down for a little while.
Right.
And then also the second challenge was just to deal with the uncertainty with the new conditions that we've seen. And one of them I mentioned is the inflammatory condition. The other thing we've seen more recently since the vaccine has emerged is the rare instances where you can get actually a bit of an inflammation of your heart muscle after you get the vaccine. So we've seen a few of those cases. Fortunately, they're pretty mild. But so I think it's and that's also the other thing is the psychological sort of like burden and being in a pandemic, working in a stressed healthcare system, adapting to that. I think it's been sort of heavy for all healthcare workers. But specifically for us, it's been sort of like that adapting but I think what I've seen which has been great is just the resilience of healthcare workers and the dedication, which is amazing to see that day in, day out.
As a hospital, and with regards to the cardiology department, what are you most proud of?
I think what I'm most proud of is the quality of the work that we give, and we give it also in a way that it's respects families, children, but also it's done in a very collegiate way. We sort of come together. There's lots of, as you know, it takes lots of people to come together to provide the kind of care that you've received. It takes not only cardiology, but it takes surgeons, it takes intensivists, it takes neonatologists, it takes pediatricians, nurses, a big team. We all sort of like converge, work together to try to provide this care. And I think we've been doing it very well over for the last 30, 40 years here at the Montreal Children's Hospital. I think families testify to that, and I think that's what I'm sort of most proud of, is the quality of the care that we can provide in a comprehensive, collegiate way that our patients can benefit from.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that the MCH moved into like the Glen site in 2015.
Yeah.
What were some of the benefits in moving away from the old site into the state-of-the-art facility?
So I think what we can offer here at the MUHC and at the Glen site is something which is fairly unique in Quebec, and I think it's very few centers in Canada that can offer that, is that we've sort of like, gone all around this idea that we wanted to take care of patients with complex lesions, be it heart, be it other type of problems, in a way that sort of follows the patient, from fetal life to adulthood, right? So we are in a sort of facility that we can actually provide that. So just to give you some examples how it applies to us, as I mentioned earlier, nowadays, and I would say over the last 15, 20 years, but certainly now it's sort of standard practice, majority of malformations, big like for instance what you were born with, something that would now be sort of detected in fetal life. So this is something that usually just by routine obstetrical screening, and then those patients get referred to sort of like the cardiologist, the sort of the diagnosis is confirmed, and then there's a whole team of obstetricians of cardiologists that come together and sort of like provide care for families and for mothers that have that, and then they plan the birth of the child, and so that everything is done very rapidly. So we can do that at the MUHC, at the Glen site, where we couldn't really do that as well at the Legacy site. The other thing is, and that's the other aspect of transition. So essentially the transition between fetal life and childhood or neonatology. And then the other transition obviously is from adolescence moving up to adulthood. And so we have a very strong unit here. It's called the MOD unit at the Royal Victoria Hospital, which is just meters away, where our patients usually go. So and then all the information is captured. We plan a transition starting in the early sort of, for instance, you would engage in discussion even at your age about sort of what would happen when I'm 18. And so the file is in the same institution. So there's lots of opportunity really to sort of like make that transition as seamless as possible and to educate. You take charge of your condition, you know what you have, you inform. So that model of care, I think that we're in a very good position to sort of try to show that it's better for families, for patients, and it brings together healthcare workers for that reason. So, and we're in a fairly unique situation now in Quebec, and when there's other places in Canada that provide that, but this is our sort of like this is our vision as an institution overall. So I think that's the kind of the one thing that sets us apart.
And are you guys like happy about the change? Are you happy about the move?
Yeah, we're very, very happy. I mean, I think that the opportunities that it's open to work closer with our obstetrical colleagues and with the adult colleagues is definitely very sort of like helpful. I mean, personally, for instance, I work, as I mentioned earlier, I do interventions in the cath lab. So, I sometimes work with my colleague on the adult side who does stuff in adults, so we help each other. And so we can provide better care, So, and the other thing is the facility. It's state of the art. It's really designed with patients and family in mind. All of our rooms are single rooms, so it provides, there is some ability to sort of like have some, that you're by yourself. You're not, like struggling to find like in a bathroom. Like basically have everything is in one place, and then so there's an intimacy like you can find in this hospital. So, so I think there's definitely a lot of pluses, like from that perspective. There obviously in any time that you change, there's a culture change, and that for the step. But I think that we're now most of us are embracing this opportunity, and they're happy with the change for sure.
That's awesome. So the MCH has been known as an innovator in cardiology in Canada.
Yeah.
Does the MCH specialize in certain cardiac procedures?
I would say that we offer a whole sort of gamut of, and I think that we do offer the entire sort of like range of cardiac diagnostic procedures, but also interventions. I can't say that that we do something that is only done here. I think that's rarely the case in what we do. But I think what stands out for what we do is more the comprehensiveness of what we can offer, be it interventions, surgical interventions. So certainly we have two surgeons like working here. They're excellent, catheter interventions like electrophysiology. All that I think it's offered here. There's nothing that it's only offered here. That you'll be hard pressed to find a place that only offers the only place that offers that particular sort of service in Canada. I would say to be able to get good care these days, you have to be able to sort of like be pretty sort of diverse in what you offer.
So my condition, I have truncus arteriosus.
Yeah.
How many cases do you get of those a year?
A year. I would probably say that it's not one of the most common malformations. I would say that given the size of our program, probably we get about 1 or 2 a year. It's
wow.
It's not a very, but it's something that obviously has been dealt with for a long time, and we certainly, I follow patients who have your condition as well, and then our group does follow quite a few of them, and so they come in various. One of the things about congenital heart disease is that even if you say I was born with truncus, I mean there's all kinds of truncuses, when there's a lot of sort of flavors and a lot of sort of like degrees of of how severe it is, and variations on the same theme if you want, but I don't know, I think we're well equipped to deal with those issues here. So.
All right, well, we've come to the end of our interview. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you and seeing your family here, and then congratulations on this effort. I think it's very nice to see young individuals who are and especially patients to try to pick up the baton and try to sensitize people to the cause. So good luck.
Thank you.
All right.
Right now, we're standing outside of the Montreal Canadiens practice facility for the morning skate. Let's go. We're standing in the media room outside of the facility where everyone comes to interview the players after practice. Hey guys, right now they're just setting up for practice. As you can see, the goalies are already there. I'm so excited. Hey guys, we're just about to interview Josh Anderson. Let's go. Okay, so you also played baseball growing up in Burlington. What position did you play? And did you ever think you could have had a career in baseball?
So growing up, I did play baseball. I played a little bit of second base, pitcher, and then a little bit of outfield. Was always competitive when I was growing up. We won the national championship with the Georgetown Eagles. I was fortunate enough to be part of a very good baseball team. And at that young of an age, you always have the dream of playing professional baseball. But when I was 12, 13 years old, I kind of had to make a choice whether it was going to be baseball or whether it was going to be hockey. And I always thought that I was a really good baseball player, but at the end of the day, my passion was with hockey, so I chose hockey.
Nice, and look at that, you made it to the NHL.
Exactly, yeah.
So you're the ultimate power forward. How difficult is it to maintain that style throughout the game, and do you need to change the pace a bit sometimes?
Yeah, you know what, it can be very difficult, when you have an 82 game schedule. There's back-to-backs. There's 3 games in 4 nights, so there's not a lot of rest. And depending on the style of play and what team you're playing against, you always want to, try to be as physical as you can. But there's also other opportunities where you don't have to bring that physicality. Maybe it's more of, good sticks, track it back and things like that. But like you said, being a power forward, I try to bring that physical presence every night as consistent as it can be.
Right. How significant was your midget year in Burlington on your career?
Yeah, you know what, it was a very important year for me. Obviously, not getting drafted to the OHL, it was something that, I always dreamed of as a kid. Going to every Sunday, either to the Brampton Battalion game or the Mississauga Steelheads game with my dad when I was about, 11, 12, 13, and, that was the route that I wanted to take. And then not being drafted was devastating, but obviously, my dad told me that there's always somebody watching, so I think that stuck with me. And then midget, I started to grow a little bit too. I was always a smaller guy, and really? I was like 5'5" in my draft year to the OHL. And then my midget year, I started to grow a bit. I think it was like 2 or 3 inches, which helped. And, I just showed up every night, dominated, and then I started getting looks from OHL teams, and that's where the process started. So that was an important year for me.
Nice. In 2014, you played with a stacked Canadian junior team. What was that experience like? And it seems like we placed high expectations on our juniors. Did that bring added pressure?
Yeah, a little bit. When you're talking about the London Knights, or are you talking about Team Canada?
Team Canada.
Team Canada. Anytime you get to represent your country, it's obviously, pretty special. And growing up, again, every Christmas, you look forward to the World Juniors. And I wasn't even on the radar. At the start of the year, it was always first, second rounders that get invited to these camps. But I had a strong start with the London Knights, and opened some eyes with the Canadian scouts, and I got the opportunity to go to the camp and make a name for myself. And making that roster was an unbelievable accomplishment, and all the hard work paid off. And it was just a very cool experience just to go to the World Juniors over in Sweden and have my family there. And obviously, we wanted to do better, but at the end of the day, it was cool representing your country.
Yeah, was it a fun trip, going to?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was, the first time I went over to Sweden to experience that, and, to play with the best players in the world at that time. So that was very exciting, and I'll always remember that for the rest of my life.
Nice, that's awesome. What impact did the trade to the Canadiens have on your career?
A huge impact. I've always grew up watching, Montreal and the Leafs. It's a huge rivalry, and my dad's from Montreal. My sister's boyfriend was born and raised in Montreal. My mom's uncle is Peter Mahovlich. So it's always been in the family blood. So getting the opportunity to play for the Montreal Canadiens has been a great experience so far, and hopefully there's many more great experiences or memories. But I did not imagine this, and it's an honor to wear that jersey every single night.
Yeah, that must be awesome. During the playoff run last season, it seemed like you were having like all fun, and there was amazing chemistry, like team chemistry. There are new faces on the team this season. How difficult is it to build team chemistry, and how much does team chemistry feed into play on the ice? Yeah,
so like last year, we had some new guys on the team, and the chemistry was there right away. And this year, when you get new faces on the team, you got to build that chemistry, and that's what we try to do in camp and team bonding. And I think that's important. Whenever you do get new guys, to make them feel comfortable, and like it's not their first time joining the team. So I thought we did a pretty good job of that in camp. But once you get on the road too, you start going out for dinners with the guys, and you start seeing each other every day. So the bond fuels up pretty quick when you guys are together every day, and I'm sure that the new guys feel comfortable right now.
And how great was that experience to go to the Stanley Cup Finals?
Yeah, it was an adrenaline rush. It was a lot of fun. It's very hard to get there, and you don't realize that until you actually do it. And to win the Stanley Cup, you're 3 wins away from hosting the Stanley Cup. So that obviously hurts a lot that we went that far and didn't get anything out of it. But that run was so much fun for not only the team but the fans, our family, the management, the organization. It was unbelievable, and something that I'll never forget. And you could see the city just coming together, and how big of an impact that was. So that was a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, it was great. Shea Weber and Carey Price are also leaders on this team. How important is it for you to elevate your team leadership role with them away?
Yeah, it's very important. I know that we have a lot of guys that played a lot of hockey this year, and I'm included in that. But you can always add that extra leadership, whether it's your play on the ice or your play off the ice, and younger guys look up to you. So I know there's a lot of guys in that locker room that try to lead in different ways, and there's always room for improvement to work on your leadership, and that'll never stop growing.
Can you walk us through your game day routine?
Yeah, so usually I'll wake up around 7:30, 7:45, have a quick shower, come to the rink, eat some breakfast. Usually we have a team meeting with some video, and then we go on the ice for a pregame skate. After the pregame skate, I'll usually pick up lunch from the rink here, go home, eat that, chill for probably 45 minutes. Then I'll go down for an hour and a half, 2-hour nap. I'll get back up, watch some TV, have a little snack at home, and then I make my way to the rink. Usually get there around 2 hours, 15 minutes before game time, tape up a couple sticks. Then we have another team meeting, play a little sewer ball, soccer, and then warm up, and then it's game time. It's ready to go.
So now I have the rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. So if Justin Bieber needed a hab to sing backup for him, who would you recommend?
I would probably say Lecky. I always hear him singing in the locker room and whatnot, so I'd probably go with him.
If you could change any rule in hockey, what would that be?
Any rule in hockey? The goaltender interference.
Mine's the puck over the glass.
The puck over the glass? Yeah, that's a good one too.
All right, this is my favorite one. I don't know why, but it's just my favorite one. The bus is ready to pull out, but you're waiting for one player. Who's that? Jonathan Drouin. If you could play an action role in the movies, who would that be? In an action movie, Tom Cruise. Who did you score your first ever NHL goal against?
Cam Ward, the Carolina Hurricanes.
And what was going through your mind when you scored your first goal?
It was crazy. It was a Saturday night in Columbus. I think we were down by 1 goal. I remember Dubinsky deflected the puck, it went down to Kirby Reichel, then he passed it across the crease. I just had to tap it in for an empty net. I went nuts, I believe, and it was a very cool moment to tie the game. We ended up losing, but it was also another memory that I'll never forget.
Paris is calling for a male runway model. Who would you recommend?
Paris? Cole Caulfield.
Cole Caulfield. If you could play for any championship trophy in any sport other than the Stanley Cup, what would that be?
Super Bowl?
Super Bowl?
Yeah, let's go with that.
What former NHLer would you have most liked to play with?
Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, nice. What is the biggest difference between a regular season and a playoff hockey in terms of style of play?
Faster games, more intense, more physical. The style of play is just so different. There's more hype, there's more energy, a lot more to play for.
What do you think of the idea of having a 3-on-3 summer tournament made up of NHLers from each province? Which province would win?
Yeah, that's a cool idea. Obviously very different. Usually in the summertime you get to relax. But to have a 3-on-3 competitive league, I think would be very cool. Yeah.
So what province do you think would win?
It's a good question.
Ontario is very stacked.
Ontario is very, very stacked.
I'll go with Ontario?
Yeah.
Nice. All right, and we've come to the end of our interview. And I want to thank you so much for joining my podcast. And it was awesome meeting you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and thank you for the questions.
Thank you for the answers.
The Canadiens are rich in tradition and is the most storied franchise in pro sports. With 24 Stanley Cups, Habs fans are passionate about their team, and hockey is so much a part of the fabric of Montreal. The Canadiens made me an honorary member of the media for its game against the Golden Knights. What a thrill it was to step on the ice with Tim Gagnon, tour the facility, chow down on some famous Bell Center hot dogs, and sit and chat with journalists like Pat Hickey and Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette and Eric Ingles of Sportsnet. The press box gives you a great view of the game. There was so much energy in the building, and the Canadiens got off to a great start. Unfortunately, some penalties helped the Knights come back and get the win. Despite the loss, it was a great experience to sit in the post-game press room, all that media time.
I thought we did a pretty good job of outworking everyone on the ice.
That's it for our first stop on my cross-country tour. I want to thank Christine Boutelier of the Montreal Children's Hospital and Tim Gagnon and the entire Canadiens organization for giving me the experience of a lifetime, first class all the way. See you in Ottawa, and remember, support children's health.